how long?
Uh, I wrote it down. 4 weeks.
8 weeks?
8 weeks. Yes,
8 weeks.
from England to Australia.
Do you remember the name of the ship?
Dunera.
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 D-U-N-E-R-A.
And there were about how many people? Were these all men and boys, or were there women as well?
No women.
No women, no girls.
No. No, there were not.
Okay.
So we interned in Australia.
So as soon as you got off the ship in Australia, they put you right into another prison.
Right.
Okay. Rudolf Sachs, tape 3. Mr. Sachs, we were talking about the trip to Australia. Did any of the Nazis or the Italians cause any trouble on the ship, or was it a fairly calm crossing from that point of view?
They had some trouble there, but we didn't know much about it because we were in front and they were in the back.
So you weren't affected?
No, we were not affected.
Were you feeling as though you had been freed, or did you know you were going to be put in another prison in Australia?
We knew that we would be interned in
You
Australia. That we knew, yes.
What had you known about Australia before you?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Did it frighten you? Did it worry you?
Well, it didn't worry me, but it's better than the concentration camp.
Indeed. How many people your age were there? Many, or were they mostly older?
Of my age?
Yes.
I would say about 25% were about my age.
All right, when you arrived in Australia, tell me what that was like, how you were treated, where you went.
Well, we went to an internment camp way out in the desert, Hay. It's called Hay, H-A-W. And there were sandstorms. You couldn't eat your breakfast. All the sands covering your bread. The treatment was fairly good. And at that time we had our own schools. And in fact, I had a teacher, we learned the furrier trade. And I went to school, learned a little bit more English. The food was good.
Steak and eggs.
And yeah. And I was quite happy there. I mean, under the circumstances. But
Going back to England for a moment, there were not yet any food shortages in England when you were there, were there?
No, not.
So no one was deprived of anything. So
No, there was
so
not.
the food in Australia was not a relief from the English food.
No.
Okay. What did you think the Australians knew about the war?
Well, the Australian, I think, knew more about it than the English at that
Really?
time. But again, I said, being interned, I had no knowledge what the outside world thinks because I wasn't there.
Now,
know?
did you see any newspapers in this camp?
We had our newspaper, yes, our own newspaper. We print our own newspaper. And
Could you listen to the
sometimes
radio?
we had, I remember when the war broke out with Japan, I saw the paper and was quite surprised. Pearl Harbor,
Yes.
you know, I was in the camp.
Did you have radios? Did you hear news?
Yes, we listened to radio, yes. We had our own school, we had our own entertainment.
What sort of entertainment?
Music and comedy, a little bit sketches on the stage.
Now, were the Nazis put in the same
No,
camp with
no,
you?
they were separately. We were from there, from Hague internment camp. We went to Tatura. That's another camp down south. That's the second camp I went to, also internment camp.
Do you remember the name?
Tatura.
Datura?
Tatura.
D-A-T-U-R-A?
T-A-T-U-R-A.
why they changed you? Why they moved you?
No reason, for no reason. If there would be a reason, I wouldn't have they wouldn't tell us.
But basically, all the people in that camp with you were the Category C.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
and they taught you trades?
At that time, they sent out a liaison officer, Major Layton, and he was to investigate our case.
Yes.
And he interviewed people, etc., etc.
He was Australian?
He was an Englishman.
An Englishman.
And he came to our camp and wanted to know what happened. In fact, the English paper had a big write-up about us. And as you can see, the Junera paper, they showed at that time what a mistake the English made to intern us. Most regrettable.
So were the things he was looking for having to do with how you were being treated in Australia, or just the circumstances under which you had been sent to Australia?
Well,
it was the British government who sent him?
At that time, they didn't care, because it was just after the evacuation of Dunkirk. Everything went upside down. There was no ruling whatsoever. And it took them a year or two to find out about these things, to realize that they made a mistake.
So in the meantime, you spent your days learning a new trade?
Learn a new trade.
Was everyone taught a trade?
Only those who wanted to.
And the others, what did they do?
And the others, they helped in the kitchen. We earned small camp money. We could buy things in the canteen.
But you could not leave the camp?
No. Once a week went for a swim in the river.
And basically, would you say you were treated well? Was any?
Yeah, well, we were not mistreated.
So no cruelty involved?
No cruelty, just no freedom.
Was anyone who was in charge of you curious about the war?
Yes, some soldier wanted to know where we come from. They found out afterwards who we were.
Yes.
They didn't find out before.
And so for how long were you in Tatura?
Well, in both camps together was two years, wasn't it? 2 years, and they gave me an option then after 2 years.
And that option?
The option either to return to England and join the Pioneer Corps or join the Australian Army. So I did not want to go back zigzagging through the Irish Sea avoiding U-boats. Incidentally, I forgot to mention that we were hit twice from U-boat, but the weather was so rough, the torpedoes went astray. Otherwise, I would have never seen Australia, because the boat was surrounded by barbed wire.
So in
Nobody
other
would
words,
have kept
the torpedoes hit the boat but didn't penetrate?
They hit the boat, but
were deflected
on the side, and it went further instead of direct hit. So I survived. That's the way I survived.
So you joined the Australian Army. What did most of the others do?
Most of them went back. Some of them stayed here. Incidentally, one transport went to Canada.
Yes.
They either stayed there or went back to England.
And tell me about your experience in the Australian Army.
It was very acceptable, very acceptable. We had roll call a day. We were assigned certain tasks, unloading ships.
Were you put in with other Germans or among the
Australians?
No,
only our own people.
Only Germans?
We had a captain in charge. He was a Maori from New Zealand.
Yes.
He was very nice. He treated us well, and he brought us back from our old standards. Many professionals. We had many professionals. I read the papers here, the Junera papers. Some were doctors, some were school teachers, some were.
But they kept the Germans separate.
Yes, absolutely, in the back. Yes.
And did any of the Germans go back to Europe to fight?
I don't know what happened to the Germans.
No, I mean in your company, in the Australian Army.
Oh, some went back to England.